So guys, welcome back to round number 13. It's the Freddie career mode once again. Obviously last time out in Italy, it really was a race to forget, and it's just time to, dust ourselves down. Freddie needs to refresh and just get back on track once more for the Singapore Grand Prix. This weekend, he will be starting from the back of the grid, just a little bit of a punishment giving from the team just to start from the back and try and work his way through the field, which means that we'll have to be extra careful at the start to try and avoid any contact with the drivers. But once again, guys, obviously another incident in the last race. Just very, very unfortunate how it also resulted in the crash for Sebastian Vettel. More wrong place, wrong time sort of stuff, perhaps questioning Freddie's aggression once more. Very much a contrast of the last few races where people have been questioning his perhaps conservative approach to races, but this time his aggression is letting him get the better of him, and he just needs to try and balance that out in the final 6 races of the season. That's really the key if he wants to win this World Championship. So guys, without further ado, let's get into Singapore now under the floodlights for the qualifying report. There were many shocks in qualifying, with the top 4 being separated by less than a tenth. Singapore was the closest it would get to Rio Haryanto's home race, and the Indonesian once again outqualified Pascal Wehrlein. Felipe Nasr got the better of his teammate for the second consecutive race, while Jenson Button continued his solid form with an 11th place grid position. Julian Palmer secured P12, 2 places higher than teammate Magnussen. Force India had another qualifying session to forget with P13 and P18. Haas recovered from a disastrous Monza qualifying to seal yet another Q3 appearance for Romain Grosjean. Williams had their best session of the year with Valtteri Bottas qualifying on pole, while Verstappen also secured another front row start. Toro Rosso had supreme pace with Russian Danny Kvyat coming home in 3rd place. It was a struggle for Mercedes and Ferrari, but Sebastian Vettel was still pleased about out-qualifying both Mercedes cars. Like in Spain, it was another back-to-front challenge for Freddie Gray, but an even tougher task around the streets of Singapore. But all was not lost. It is time for the Singapore Grand Prix.
Good luck today, mate. Just take extra caution at the start. We don't want anything silly.
So obviously starting from the back here under the floodlights here in Singapore, obviously extra caution needs to be taken at the start to avoid any front wing losses at the start of the Grand Prix, as we are now underway here, starting alongside the manor of Pascal Wehrlein and getting a considerably quicker start than the manor driver there, as we now head into turn 1 for the first time today, going around the outside of many cars. But once again, just going to be cautious, not going to go in too aggressively, don't want to do anything too silly at this start and lose a bit of our front wing just to make matters worse. Obviously a track which requires high downforce, cannot afford to be doing that whatsoever, as we now head into turn number 4. Felipe Nasr going around the outside of Hulkenberg, while Freddie goes down the inside of Hulkenberg. So Hulkenberg getting completely mugged there, as we are now on the straight, heading down into turn 6 and turn number 7. We're behind the Danish driver now of Kevin Magnussen. We're going to think about diving on down the inside. Indeed we do. And now ahead of us we have a McLaren as well as a Toro Rosso being boxed in there by Carlos Sainz Jr. going incredibly slowly. Now into turn number 8. We've overtaken Sainz up the inside. The Toro Rosso driver has been passed for what I believe now is a points position. You can see just ahead up the road is obviously Lewis Hamilton. So we had an incredible start now up into P number 10, behind now Romain Grosjean in the Haas F1 car, who we can probably overtake. Around the outside here, we just about overtake him, saving the track limits, just outbrake ourselves ever so slightly, and thankfully Freddie does indeed make the move now up into P9. The next car on our hit list is Lewis Hamilton and the rest of the leaders, so we've made very good progress so far. Now to the end of lap 1, on to the beginning of lap 2, we have Lewis Hamilton, hopefully we should be reeling in very, very soon. But actually there, Danny Kvyat has had an engine problem, so Kvyat for some reason has just stopped on the side of the track. Very dangerous. I'd be very surprised if that doesn't turn out to be a safety car, unless Kvyat can park up into turn number 1. But that was very odd to see, to say the very least. We've lost one car now, Danny Kvyat and the Toro Rosso. A very strange engine problem there for the Toro Rosso driver, but now there's battling going on ahead into turn 7 out of the exit. Lewis Hamilton being held up by Nico Rosberg and Sebastian Vettel, our teammate, battling out, and we take full advantage of that and now got the inside of Lewis Hamilton into P7. We have passed our championship rival here. Obviously Hamilton taking the lead last time out in Monza thanks to that race, which we really need to forget about, but currently ahead of the Mercedes driver.
Okay, so Rosberg has an engine problem, so he's very slow in a straight line. Just be aware.
So it seems like more issues for Mercedes. Nico Rosberg, by the sounds of it, has an incredibly dying engine right now. So it seems as if he's going to be very slow in the straight lines. We're going to have to see very, very soon. You can see there almost losing our front wing as we open the DRS. Very lucky not to spin out. It just seems there's almost smoke coming out of the back of that Mercedes car. So Nico Rosberg, an engine failure. Looks like he's going to be out of the Grand Prix. More luck striking the German there, the Mercedes driver. But now on to lap 4. We still have Lewis Hamilton with us, but now we are behind Daniel Ricciardo and our teammate Sebastian Vettel. So at the moment I believe it is still Valtteri Bottas leading with Felipe Massa in second. So currently it's a Williams 1-2 as we're right on the back of Sebastian Vettel. We're going to sniff one up the inside here. I think we're going to take full advantage. We go into the tunnel, almost forcing Sebastian into the wall. We do not want to do that after Monza, but that was very close there, and I think we are going to make a move, stick around the outside. Vettel backing up a little bit too much and actually allowing Lewis Hamilton through as well. So currently now into P5 we have Verstappen ahead of us along with Ricciardo and the 2 Williams cars. So it's very surprising to see 2 Red Bulls and 2 Williams cars especially. Obviously Red Bull, this is a track that should shoot them quite well with obviously the high downforce, but obviously in a straight line like we have here we should be able to dive one up the inside of Verstappen, lining it up there, diving up the inside, squeezing Verstappen out, and a nice clean move in the end up to P4. And we are currently setting the purple sector time, so pace at the moment is very strong and we are looking pretty promising right now, and the start has been very good. Considering we started at the back, the gains that we've made have been very, very impressive because we are now on the back of Daniel Ricciardo, who's also on the ultra soft tyres. Of course, we almost squeezed him into the outside wall there as we now head into this next corner underneath the Anderson Bridge, and we have just about made that move on Ricciardo's stick, but very, very close there to forcing Ricciardo into the wall. Another incident for Freddie, but thankfully it didn't quite happen. Now onto the back of the other Williams of Felipe Massa. This corner here seems to be our favourite overtaking spot on the entire track. I believe it's the turn 11 and 12 chicane, now going down into turns 13 and 14, and we do make the move of Felipe Massa once more, now up into P2, and Valtteri Bottas here is now within striking distance on the back straight. We should be able to open up the DRS as we do here. We might try and make a move around the outside of the Finnish driver, heading now down into turn number 7. We should be able to upbrake him here, down into 3rd gear, and we make the move up into P1, once again squeezing Valtteri, forcing him to back off, and we are now up into the lead of the Singapore Grand Prix. This has been an absolutely incredible start, probably the best I've seen from Freddie throughout his Formula 1 career, honestly. Now onto lap number 9, it is time to come into the pits.
Incredible first stint, Freddie. Rain is expected in around 5 to 10 minutes though.
So interesting, rain is expected in the next few laps, but obviously looking at the tyre graphic there, taking these tyres another few laps just seems quite impossible, to be honest with you. Definitely the rear tyres anyway are looking bright orange, so not too long then until they turn to red, and when that happens it is literally impossible to drive. It's like driving on ice when that happens, so we don't want that to happen to us right now. As you can see, coming into the pits with us is Felipe Massa, Lewis Hamilton and a Red Bull, I believe. I think it's of Max Verstappen, not entirely sure on that, but we have obviously maintained our lead despite the front wing change, due to losing our end plate by tapping the wall. Obviously very easy to do around the Singapore track, but it didn't cost us any time, thankfully. We are still in the lead despite a decreased gap behind to Felipe Massa. We should still be able to jump the guys ahead of us. I believe it's Sebastian Vettel, Nico Rosberg and Daniel Ricciardo who have stayed out on the tracks. We just need to wait and see now, see how it all pans out. We haven't rejoined in any traffic, thankfully. We do have a gents button ahead of us, but still quite some way up the road. Now on to the next lap, we've got Bottas, Verstappen and Sebastian Vettel in the pit lane. We have easily jumped all 3 of those guys, and I think Bottas has maintained P2 as well. But now onto lap 13, you can see now the rain is beginning to fall and the track is quite wet, and Freddie thought at this point it's time to risk it and change onto the intermediate tyres. Obviously the lap around Singapore is incredibly long, and with the conditions around a place like Singapore, the rain does come down incredibly heavily, so staying at one more lap will probably cost us an awful amount of time. So to come in this lap, it would probably actually be a very sensible call. It looks like all the guys behind us are actually staying out one more lap. For some reason the gap between Bottas and his teammate Felipe Massa is incredibly long. Massa obviously struggling with pace right now. That could perhaps indicate a problem for him, but we'll obviously see the extent of that later on. But on the intermediate tyres, this shouldn't cost us too much time at all. It's just a matter of time before the other guys. I think they'll probably be pitting in on this lap, so I think we're going to gain quite a lot of time. Now on to lap 14, now on to the next lap until lap 15. They're only just stopping in their boxes, for goodness sake. We're easily ahead of all of those guys. Valtteri Bottas just about exiting the pits, but we still do maintain around the 2-second lead, and we do run a little bit wide into turn number 1 and turn number 2, now into turn 3, and it's still a little bit slidey out there. The rain is actually getting very heavy, so perhaps it's not even long now until the wet tyres. We do put a wheel onto the curb then. We have to go down the escape road. We're going to have to do a bit of a flick spin here. Freddie Gray is going to have to do. As you can see, Valtteri Bottas has jumped us into the lead of the Singapore Grand Prix, and that was a clear indication just then that it is pretty much time for the wet tyres. Now, on to later on into lap 16. Basically, on the next lap, we tried to stay out for one more lap, but I think it's definitely time now. Look at this, sliding about all over the place. Aquaplaning will obviously be evident at some points in the track, just like here actually, as we run completely off and just about stop the car before we hit the wall there. Freddie Gray very lucky to not lose his front wing, and he has lost a further few positions.
Yep, it's definitely time for wet tyres.
So yes, indeed, definitely time to come into the pits for wet tyres. We're losing too much time right now on the intermediate. So the wet tyres, obviously the go-to tyre right now, as we once again run wide into the corner, failing to stop, and that was really unlucky. That was mainly due to the realistic damage mod. They're literally just tapping the wall and losing our entire front wing. But thankfully, as we drive through a Mercedes pit mechanic there, very strangely, but our team aren't even ready because Sebastian Vettel has just come into the pit lane. Look at them, they're just standing there like complete pilots. What are they doing? As we do finally put on the wet tyres and our new front wing. That was really unfortunate. We've actually lost a lot of time. Now we're behind Verstappen and also Felipe Massa, so a lot of ground needs to be made up in this next stint on these wet tyres. Hopefully Freddie will have the pace. Hopefully the Ferrari's up for the challenge here, because it's going to be one tough stint if we can't catch up to these guys. Carlos Sainz also just behind us, along with Jenson Button, so we've got to try and pass these guys as soon as we possibly can. Now, later on into the lap, on lap 17, we've got Max Verstappen ahead of us, so we're going to try and make a move around the outside. We're going to stick behind him for now. We're not going to try anything too stupid, not anything too risky, but we're going to try and make a manoeuvre into turn number 11 now, as we do back off just there, as we're going to try another move here around the outside of turn 11, and we do make it stick. Turn 11 does definitely seem to be our favourite overtaking spot around this track. Certainly Freddie seems to be making the majority of moves today around that part of the track. Now into turns 2 and turns 3. We are now behind the Williams of Felipe Massa, who seems to be nursing some sort of issue, I've got to say. He has dropped back considerably from the start. He was holding up quite a massive train, definitely before the switch onto the intermediate tyres. You can see braking very early there, so Massa obviously nursing some sort of issue, but continuing on because Williams still thinks that he can score points there, and that's obviously a good decision from them. Now, Daniel Ricciardo going to make another move into turn 11 and around the outside. What a move that was, by the way. Swift as you like, clean and tidy move round the outside of the Australian from Freddie Gray. A brilliant, brilliant move. Now up into P4, now onto lap 23. It took us a while, but we have caught up the top 3 once again. The reason why we caught up so quickly is because Bottas is holding up Vettel and Hamilton. Obviously Bottas is very much out of sync here. Had an incredible qualifying yesterday to steal pole position, and he's holding up the likes of Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton. We're going to try and take advantage of that by getting good traction out of the hairpin, and we are now up into P3 ahead of Lewis Hamilton, but he is still alongside us, however, as you can see in the background there, the skyscrapers under the floodlights here in Singapore. Lewis Hamilton still on our outside. Can he make it stick, or has Freddie been able to make that move? I think he has. Lewis Hamilton backing off in the end. Now we're on the back of our teammate Sebastian Vettel. We've got to try and make this move as soon as we possibly can. The comeback once again in this stint has been quite incredible. Very, very impressive once more. Now Sebastian Vettel is our next target, the next car on our hit list, and we can still see Sebastian Vettel and Valtteri Bottas very much within striking distance here. We should be able to pass them very soon. We've got to wait and see now. Just try and pick our spot, pick our opportunity, not do anything silly once again. But Vettel here getting a bit of an untidy run into turn 2 out of the exit, and Freddie Gray takes advantage of that, and he is now up into P2 ahead of his teammate. And now the only car left to overtake is Valtteri Bottas. Almost managed to overtake around the outside, just breaking that little bit later than the Williams car, but thankfully we have made the move on Sebastian Vettel. He just seemed to get a very slow run out of the exit of turn 2, and Freddie Gray obviously taking advantage of that. And now up into P2 as we approach lap 26, getting ever closer to Valtteri Bottas, currently 6 tenths to him and 6 tenths behind Lewis Hamilton. Sebastian Vettel has dropped back ever so slightly, so hopefully he doesn't have any sort of issue. I hope he doesn't anyway. Now right on the back of Bottas, having a very similar run into turn 2 compared to Sebastian Vettel the last lap, and for some reason that really catches Freddie off guard, having to weave out the way to avoid any contact, and Lewis Hamilton makes the most of that opportunity, capitalises, and is now up into P2. So a bit of an odd incident there. Valtteri Bottas running very, very slowly indeed through turn 2. Freddie having to steer to the right hand side to avoid any contact, and Lewis Hamilton obviously capitalising, sniffing one up the inside and making the move into P2. And actually looking ahead, Lewis Hamilton, because of Valtteri Bottas' braking problems, it seems actually confirmed by that, Lewis Hamilton has lost his front wing because of Bottas braking so early. So that is very odd to see. So perhaps that was the issue with Freddie Gray before. Valtteri Bottas suffering some braking issues, and now Lewis Hamilton has lost his front wing. Unbelievable. Now Daniel Ricciardo, you can see behind, has really caught up. But now into lap 28, guys, the rain really stops, and around around Singapore, the track does dry out incredibly quickly. So at this point, Freddie decided to take another risk and come in for a set of intermediate tyres. I don't think the guys behind Sebastian Vettel is currently in second, with Daniel Ricciardo in third. So currently those guys are wanting to stay out. We decided to take a risk here. Freddie decided to come in for some intermediate tyres. It worked out arguably last time and with the ever-drying track and the long lap time around Singapore, this should hopefully play to Freddie's advantage. We're going to have to wait and see, as we're going to move on to lap 30 very soon. Here we go now, on to lap 30. We are way ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, but for some reason, Sebastian Vettel was getting a huge overcut, and Freddie may have potentially lost the win here, but perhaps going on to the intermediate tyres that little bit too early.
You've got the team's permission to race. Just make sure you keep it clean.
So this is the message that obviously everyone is wanting to hear. Sebastian Vettel and Freddie Gray have been given permission to race. Freddie is obviously not going to have this. He must be pretty furious right now that this has turned out to be, you know, a pretty unsuccessful risk, you've got to say. Onto the intermediate tyres, perhaps that one lap too early, and Sebastian Vettel gaining that advantage on Freddie Gray, his teammate. So lap 31 now, the final lap of the Grand Prix. Can we perhaps make a late diving manoeuvre on Sebastian Vettel? We get a good exit out of here. Now heading into the last part of the track. Are we going to make a diving manoeuvre up the inside of Sebastian Vettel? Yes, we do. Up into the lead of the Singapore Grand Prix. And there we go, up into first position, and it looks like we are going to take the win. Sebastian Vettel really not putting up too much of a fight, perhaps feeling slightly bad for Freddie, but I very much doubt it after the past instances they had. It was just a good diving manoeuvre up the inside from Freddie Gray, and into the last couple of corners now. Freddie Gray from the back of the grid is going to win the Singapore Grand Prix. Get in!
Absolutely brilliant, mate. Second 1-2 of the season, and now we lead both championships.
So an incredible result from Freddie Gray. What a race that was at the Singapore Grand Prix. And in second place was obviously our teammate Sebastian Vettel. A Ferrari 1-2. The second time that has happened this season after the previous race in Monza being such a heartbreak. This was a brilliant return to form. Daniel Ricciardo in third with Lewis Hamilton fourth. Verstappen in fifth. Sainz in sixth. Button in seventh. Magnussen in eighth. Hulkenberg in ninth. And Felipe Nasr picking up points for Sauber in 10th place. And Valtteri Bottas in the end ending up in 12th place. Very strange after being in the lead for basically the entirety of the Grand Prix, obviously losing so much time with that front wing change, obviously that incident with Lewis Hamilton at the end. So now viewing the Drivers' Championship post-Singapore Grand Prix, we can see Freddie Gray has taken the lead now at the expense of Lewis Hamilton. The gap behind is 4 points. This is getting very tense. A very, very close championship fight it will be in the final 6 races coming up now. Sebastian Vettel in third with Rosberg in fourth, Massa in fifth. Both those drivers not scoring any points though. Ricciardo picking up a podium in 6th place. Actually his first points, I believe, for a very, very long time, for at least 3 or 4 races. Verstappen getting a very strong result as well. 5th place finish for him. Kvyat in 8th with no points. Bottas in 9th with no points either. Hulkenberg in 10th place with 51 points. And Perez in 11th with 48. And in the Constructors, not really much change. Ferrari, obviously, they're 1-2, considerably opening up the gap to Mercedes behind them. Further down, Toro Rosso have closed the gap to Force India. McLaren getting a huge haul of points thanks to Jenson Button. And Sauber picked up their second point of the season thanks to Felipe Nasr once again finishing in 10th place. So guys, if you have enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you are new to the channel. 5 races left in this Freddie Gray career mode, guys. It's going to get very tense. 4 points of the gap between Freddie Gray and Lewis Hamilton. It's going down to those two again. Those two will be fighting it out for this World Championship for the 2nd consecutive year. I'm looking forward to how it goes down, guys. If you are, leave a comment down below. And yes, I will see you next time for the Malaysian Grand Prix. Bye-bye.